Okay, just about to get going with the shades for this Eltharion miniature. We've got our base paints all done now, and the next step is to start shading those colours, which will give us better definition. It'll help us outline the different areas of colour, and will help to make the miniature hopefully to start look better. So my main method for shading the miniature is just going to be using the Citadel shades and contrast paints, and normally I would start with the lightest shade and go down from there to the darkest. So I've got a number of little white areas to do, largely on these on the headdress white sections on these feather shapes, and some of the other little areas here and there, and I'm going to use my mix that I made up in video 1 to do that. So just a case of going in with the detail brush again, and just adding some on. It's not immediately obvious, and it really shouldn't be, but as it settles and dries, it'll just add a little hint of that off blue colour to these white areas. And it doesn't really matter if you go over the edge too much with this. As I say, we're working from the light ones down to the dark ones, so you kind of tidy up as you go. And as always, this is going to darken down the colours that I've already painted. But this is part of the process, or at least the method that I like to use. It helps give you something to highlight with later. This stuff just finds all those little grooves, and just improves the definition. Really enjoy this stage. And then next are the yellows with Cassandora yellow. You can see I'm trying to avoid going on to the joining colours like the blue there. If I can, it's not a big deal. I'm trying to keep the yellow, or any of the subsequent shades I use, off of joining colours, especially the white and the runes on the sword. Now, an example in the army book, these runes have got a lot of contrast to them in terms of they're starting from a really strong orange up to a bright yellow. So I'm going to go quite heavy with this at the moment, and may need to add some orange to it. And then the silver behind it we're going to be going over with other washes later, so I can't really help going over the edge at this stage, but we'll tidy it up. It may need to be darkened. The little pouches done with the light tan colour. Usually use Seraphim Sepia for a start. If it doesn't show enough shading on it, I can always go over it with Agrax Earthshade. Okay, I've got the Reichland Flesh Shade now. I'm just going to start applying that to all the gold areas. Just want to try and keep the shade off of the lighter tones like the white and the yellow where I can, if I can avoid it. That's why I'm using a reasonably small brush again for this. And with the shades, start getting those dividing lines or the outlining between the different colour areas. It's just what we want. And also the detail starts to appear. If you put too much on, just dry the brush and then wick away the excess. You don't necessarily want to completely flood the different areas, but you do want to make sure you get all the different areas. This really does deepen that gold effect. Okay, so that's the shading done on the gold armour. Small amount of Agrax Earthshade. A couple of spots. I really like the way this Skeleton Horde contrast paint worked on the previous miniatures, where there were these red-green patterns, just as a kind of one pass over a lot of it to help find those very small ridges. I'll just use that on there. And I'm just putting some Carberg Crimson now onto the red areas. Just need to be careful when you're up at the white. You don't go over the edge too much. This tends to be quite a strong shade. And onto all the gems, where it just adds that really nice line of black or very dark red to separate the gem from its surround. Just taking my time around the gloves. Now I've got the Drakenhof Nightshade. Makes such a difference to these little detailed shapes. If you do use a fine brush for it, you can just run it around the outside edges just to give you that outline. Just up to the helmet now, and to go over these little blue areas. Hopefully you can see that as I move along these, that the shading is going into the grooves. I'm just adding a nice little dark line. Just a bit of Nuln Oil also. And then I'm going to go over these little studs. and maybe a couple of passes on the hair just to darken that down. Okay, so the last thing to have a go at with the shades is this sword, where in the army book it's shown having a kind of purple through to green blend. So I've got some of this Biltan green and some Druchii or Druchii violet, which will give this the nice purple look. And then a bit of Lamian medium, if need be, to thin it out. So I'm just going to give it a go and start adding the violet colour. Just use my finger straight away to mop up the extra, heading up towards where the green needs to be. And it's one of these things you kind of need to get it all done in one go, rather than spending too long working back and forth. And if the effect isn't strong enough the first time, then it would be a case of just reapplying the same paints. And I might just want to keep the miniature on its side, just to give it a chance of drying in this arrangement. See how we get on. And where the two colours meet, I'm just using the Lamian medium just to kind of help it blend a little bit. Don't want to mess around with it too much. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry as is. I'm going to keep it held in a kind of horizontal plane like this, just to let it dry, and then see how it looks. Okay, so that's after one pass, and I think I'll just go back in again and add a bit more colour to it. Come down just a little bit lower with the green, going by what I can see in the book, a bit on the sides, and then the purple as well. Just increases the saturation on the colour. Just got to be careful where they blend. Okay, there we go. So that's the shading done now. Everything has been darkened down, as you can see, but in the layering to come we'll get the brightness back. But what we do have now are some nice little outlines and definition that we didn't have before. So in our two parts, everything now is really ready to go for the next stage. So thanks very much for watching.